Hello all, I am Setu Chitra, native Malayali from Kerala, and today I am going to tell you the untold story about the life of a young Nambudiri woman named Thatri Kutty, who with her courage and boldness brought light to the life of the Nambudiri women, who had little to no privilege, most of them who were married off at a very young age of 10 or 11 to much older Nambudiri men, often were left secluded as young widows confined to the four walls. Nambudiri men were allowed to take many wives or consorts, leaving many Nambudiri women to the sorrow of sharing in grief her undivided devotion to their older husband. But this entire social system was challenged by a single woman, Thatri Kutty, who pointed out the hypocrisy of Brahmin men. She used her oppression as an instrument to bring change. She was taught to repress her sexuality by society, but she used it as a weapon to break the shackles of the structure. So today let me narrate to you this untold story, which many of you may not know. So let's start with the background of this woman. Thatri Kutty was from the Nambudiri Brahmin community, which is a Malayali Brahmin caste, native to Kerala. In the hierarchy of caste, they were at the highest strata. They had immense social and economic capital. They were traditional feudal landlords, and they oppressed not only lower caste, but also the Brahmins lower in hierarchy. They even held power over the king of Kochi, while men enjoyed their social position and were provided with financial security from land and endless Vedic knowledge. Nambudiri women had little to no privilege. They were called Ankajanam, which translates to indoor person, because that is what was expected out of them. They were trained from childhood to marry and serve their husbands. When the 19th century colonialism was successfully washing away the toxic religious practices, these women were still in Padakh, with no land ownership, education, or even a voice of their own. To keep the property within the family and avoid disputes, only the eldest son of a Nambudiri family was to marry an Ankajanam. The eldest son could have as many wives as he pleased, or even a much younger wife. Families often traded their daughters like cattle. As for the women, they were only allowed to practice endogamy and remain monogamous. The women who had the fortune to get married were either neglected and spent their entire lives confined to the four walls, or ended up being a young widow to an old husband. These women, despite being rich, were not allowed to dress up. They weren't allowed gold. They only could wear brass. They couldn't leave the house without a maid or their husband, and even then they were to cover themselves in a blanket and an umbrella. On one hand, while the upper caste women were expected to be pure and tamed, the lower caste women weren't considered virtuous or pure enough to even lay restriction on. They were oppressed and exploited to fulfill the desire of Brahmin men, and often forced into jobs like prostitution. It was finally in 1905 that the shackles were broken by one woman. Call her brave, cunning, callous, whatever, but she was the first to rebel. This is the story of that beautiful Nambudiri Antharjanam who decided to use her body to lash out at society. She was Thatri. Let's come to the story and see what happened. One fine day, a wealthy and aged but promiscuous Nambudiri man reaches the bedroom of a well-known and desirable prostitute. After a very satisfactory session, he finally gets to see her face and recoils in utter shock when he realizes that this was none other than his own young wife. The man flees the place and raises a hue and cry and made a formal complaint of adultery. Soon the Antharjanam, known as Kuriyedatu Katri, is secluded according to the norms, and a Smarthavicharam trial is launched. The Cochin king, as required, sanctions it. The public interest was huge, for rumor had it that the lady was a very clever and apparently popular person with much ammunition up her sleeve. This sensational trial involved Savitri, also called Thatri, the protagonist of this story, who would break the shackles of society tied onto her. She was born into the Kalpaksaseri Ilam in Kalapalli Taluk in what is now inside Thrissur district in Kerala as the daughter of Ashtamurthi Nambudiri of Kalpaksaseri Ilam. As per records, she is said to have born in 1885. After her birth, an astrologer is said to have told her father that Thatri's birth was destined to bring calamity and destroy the family's honor. Hence from her childhood her parents and family members secluded her because of the astrologer's prediction. She grew without love around her, but she was noticeably extremely smart and intelligent from her very childhood. At the age of 9, Thatri went to her auntie's house near Kunnamkulam to learn singing from Nambishan. Thatri's statement during the trial says that she was sexually harassed there for 12 consecutive days by her relative Musamburi Nampyathan. She is said to have got married in between the age of 11 and 13 to Raman Nambudiri of Chemmanthite Kuriyadathilam, who was in his 60s. Raman had multiple wives and regularly hired prostitutes to his house. Later Thatri split with Raman. How she split with her husband is still unclear, but several sources state that he abandoned Thatri after she protested against bringing other women and prostitutes to their home. With Raman abandoning her, Thatri was forced to do sex work. Thatri was said to be extremely beautiful and the men who visited her did not knew she was an Ankajanam, married Nambutiri woman, and these visits were arranged through her servant. Now coming back to where we stopped earlier, Smarthavicharam was the trial that a Nambudiri woman had to go through when her chastity or sexual fidelity was doubted, and if found guilty, they were all excommunicated. This practice itself is so misogynist that it refers to women as sadhanam, which translates to thing object. The woman is no longer entitled to even a name. The Smartan who administers Vedic laws is none other than the famed Jathavedan Nambutiri of the Perumanan Gramam. Thatri is sitting in a special outhouse built for seclusion and imprisonment during the trial. She seems serene and ready to face the questioning. Unlike other timid prisoners, this is a proud and beautiful lady who had controlled many weak men above her for the last few years. She was not intimidated. When Raman Nambutiri reported Thatri's matter in the concerned Nambutiri meeting, an investigation was started against Thatri for infidelity and promiscuity. Some people suggest that it was Thatri's neighbor who reported about Thatri's acts in the meeting. By the end of 1904, Thatri's first Smarthavicharam was already over, but due to the controversies, the king ordered to conduct the Smarthavichara once more. On 13 July 1905, her second trial was conducted. What unfolded in the trial left everyone aghast. When Thatri Kutty accepted all the accusations and immediately confessed to her acts, however, she claimed that this is a crime she hasn't committed alone, and insisted that the men who participated with her also bear the consequences. During such instances usually, the woman would take some hush money and let go of the men involved, but Thatri was determined to make them suffer, and when she started naming men, there was a long list of 65 men, belonging to diverse backgrounds. During the trial Thatri admitted to all accusations and in return demanded that the law should be administered equally to everyone. Thatri revealed that she was sexually harassed or had mutual consensual sex with 13 Nambudiris, 13 Ambalavasis, 10 Ayers, 11 Naz and 1 Syrian Christian. Many of the people Thatri said she had sex with were her close relatives, including her father and her father's half-brother, who sexually harassed her. The list also included renowned scholars, musicians, Kathakali artists ranging from a 14-year boy to 85-year-old man. Everyone undermined her capabilities. but she fought like a barrister. Despite many men denied being involved, Thatri confirmed their identities by recalling the birthmarks and moles on the private parts of their bodies. She was able to even remember the exact date, time and place when they slept together. She also produced various written and visual evidence like letters that were written to her. This trial led to these men losing the credibility in the society. Based on the records, many historians argue that the king had a special interest in Khutri's trial. During the 7-month-long trial in 3 locations under heavy security, each name was called out by Thatri. It is said that when she was about to tell the 65th name, Thatri asked, holding up a ring, asking, "Do I need to say this name too?" The trial was reportedly ended by the king after this incident. Rumor has it that the king abruptly ended the trial because he believed he would be the 65th name to be revealed. It is also said that Thatri called out the name of many men during the trial to take revenge against them as they sexually harassed her during her childhood. For the first time in the history of Smarthavichara, the accused were allowed to conduct a cross-examination during the trial of Khuttri. Kavunkal Shankar Panikar, Katalak Madhavan Nair, Panangavil Narayana Nambiar and Achyuta Pothuval, who were famous Kathakali artists of that time, quit their jobs and left their village because of the disgrace of having their secret relationship with Khuttri. After the trial, she was excommunicated along with the men. As per the government records, it is finally recorded that Thatri was sent to Chalkudi and settled in a riverside home. There is no record of her life after that. However, a popular belief is that Thatri married a Syrian Christian and led her later life in Madras. Hence, Thatri Kutty pointed out the hypocrisy of Nambudiri men. She used her oppression as an instrument to bring change. She was taught to repress her sexuality by society, but she used it as a weapon to break the structure. Her act didn't just impact the 64 men who were excommunicated. It shook the social conditions since so many of them had left. Society changed a lot as a whole. Thatri Kutty is referred to as the goddess of revenge because she avenged her subjugation and oppression of all the women. It is said this was one of the last trials to take place, and the last recorded Smarthavicharam trial was conducted in 1918. Her trial opened doors to a new discussion and raised questions. It was surely a turning point in Kerala history. Following the trial of Khuttri, a council called Yugaksamam was formed under the leadership of a few revolutionary Nambudiri men who promoted ideas such as the relaxation of marriage rules and abolishing the practice of sambandham. Her trial was a turning point in Kerala's history for women and their liberation. Thank you for being patient listeners. This is signing off. Setu Chitra. For more such informative, untold stories, subscribe our channel. For you it's just a click of the button, and no loss. But for us it is an encouragement to keep telling you untold stories. Thank you.